Without further ado, folks, my name is Catrina Duthie. Everybody just calls me Cat, and I'm a wedding planner. I've been in the industry for 7 years, so there's not much that I haven't seen when it comes to wedding planning. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about what I do. I'm the founder and director of wedding planning company Fin Flükra. And this is generally me on your wedding day. They're ready to power through, cheerlead you, and be your absolute A-game supporter on your wedding day. All the couples that you were featured in that video are couples whose weddings I help plan and various degrees of service. So I can help couples with hourly planning. I can help couples who want to plan their wedding themselves, but in that final month they decide, actually, I want to hand over the reins to somebody else to run the day for me. So that's something that I offer. And I also have my couples who it all just gets a bit much. They think this is really stressful, I'm a wee bit overwhelmed, I don't really know where to begin, so they'll come to me and I can help them plan this full wedding in collaboration with them. So those are some of the things I offer. And today, what I'm here to do is share with you my 5 top tips for wedding planning success. So let's get into it, folks. First thing probably isn't going to come as much of a surprise. One of the things I want to talk to you about first of all is thinking about working out your budget. And I imagine when it comes to finances, a lot of us end up feeling a little bit like this. It's important you have this conversation very early on. And you have it as an honest conversation as a couple and deciding what you reasonably can afford and what you're comfortable spending on your wedding day. Us Scots are a bit funny when it comes to talking about money, but when it comes to your wedding planning, it really helps from the outset to have that conversation early on. How much you're willing to spend, how much you feel comfortable spending, and whether or not you perhaps have savings put aside. Are you maybe going to have a longer engagement to allow you to save up to have the funds to be able to have the wedding that you want? And also thinking about if you have family members who are perhaps in a position to contribute to your wedding. That's fantastic if you do. If you've got family members who are willing to help out with your wedding, brilliant. But again, having an honest conversation about that, what that means. Are they prepared to give you that money and let you just use it how you want? It's your wedding, you do what you want, go for it. Or will they have perhaps expectations about contributing to the wedding by having some guests or family friends that they want to have invited along? Are they maybe wanting to have a little bit more of a say in terms of the decision making as part of your wedding? So it's really important that you have honest, frank conversations about finances right at the start. The running theme of the tips today will very much be every decision that you make regarding your wedding is going to come back to your budget. So it's important you have that conversation early enough and that you're honest with each other, because you want to start your wedding, you want to start your marriage in the best place possible, and that's by having a financially secure start and thinking about what you're willing to spend and pay on your wedding. Things like talking to your suppliers about your budget. Say how much you can afford, be honest. Go straight in and say, right, this is what we're looking to spend, what does that look like? Your suppliers will be honest and tell you, actually, yeah, this is what you can achieve with that budget. They might say to you, what you've got to spend isn't going to work with the service that they offer. That's fine. It allows you to then move on and find a supplier that's more in keeping with your budget. I liken it to going car shopping. Now, I know that doesn't seem very sexy, but let's be honest, we've all been out and thought to ourselves, oh, we need to go get a new car. So am I going to be going to the Fiat dealership, or am I going to be going to the Ferrari dealership? You probably already know how much you're willing to spend. The same applies to your wedding planning. So be honest and upfront from the start. Phrases like, we have a reasonable budget, it doesn't really mean a lot, because what's reasonable to me, what's reasonable to you, and what's reasonable to your friends, your family, your other half are completely different figures. So it's really clear to be honest about the financial side up front. That seems an obvious thing to say, but I can't stress that enough. So absolutely talk about money up front from the start. Which then kind of will influence the next decision that I would say that you need to think about, which is what size of wedding do you want? That is going to be impacted by the financial implications of what you're prepared to spend. So perhaps you want to go for a smaller wedding, something a little bit more intimate, maybe just elope with a handful of your family and friends. That will invariably mean less cost. Smaller wedding is going to cost you less. The lovely Remy and Sam here have literally everybody that attended their wedding is in that photograph there. And that was what they wanted. They had the perfect day and it was just them and the nearest and dearest that were there to celebrate. That was absolutely the right decision for them. Might not be for you, but it's something to consider. With a smaller wedding as well, you do have greater flexibility in terms of the day itself. It won't feel as structured, and you have more freedom in terms of timings. You can be a little bit more flexible about how the day goes. It will feel a lot less structured, and it will give you a little bit more time to relax and enjoy yourself. In addition, if you're planning on getting married outside, for example, if the weather's not playing ball, if you're having a smaller wedding, you don't have a caterer or a kitchen waiting to serve 100+ meals at a specific time, so you can hang about and wait for the weather to change. So there are things to consider if you are planning on maybe having a smaller wedding. And honestly, your finances will go further, and a smaller wedding generally means less logistics to manage, and it does mean that you will actually have a little bit more freedom in terms of going a little bit extra special in those things that you really love. However, perhaps you want to go for the big party, the big shebang. And after the last 3 years, people, I wouldn't blame you. It's exactly what I would do. Go all out, have that big party, celebrate with the people that you love, get everybody together, and absolutely have a fantastic day. Obviously, a bigger wedding is going to cost more. That's the reality of the situation. So again, you're going to see where I'm going with this. That's why tip 1, talk about your budget at the start, is really, really important. So those are the things that you should consider about the size of your wedding, as well as that location will play a part in that. Bigger numbers will limit certain venues that you might be able to accommodate all your guests. So again, there's no point going and start looking at venues and thinking, oh, I absolutely love this venue, and then turn around and say, oh, well, we can only accommodate 80 people, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to have 120 people at my wedding. So it's really important, again, at the start, that you decide these things early on, so that you're not caught short when you're actually starting to look at suppliers and venues for your wedding. That takes me on to establishing your priorities and your style. Now, what do I mean by establishing your priorities? Each couple's relationship is different. Everybody's relationship is completely unique. And the things that you love and share as a couple will absolutely be completely unique to you as well. So when I talk about establishing your priorities, that also does link back to, you guessed it, your budget. So you perhaps are somebody that really loves food. You love going out to fancy restaurants, you really enjoy spending time dining, and that's something that you love. You like to cook at home, you really have a passion for food. Stands to reason then that you're probably going to want to get the best caterer, the best food for your wedding. And that's where you're going to want to spend a little bit more of your budget. So that's a priority that you can set out right from the start and think, okay, we want to invest a little bit more in that side of our wedding planning. Perhaps you really love live music and you think to yourself, do you know what, I want to have live music for every part of my day. I want live musicians for the ceremony, the drinks reception. I want to have a 12-piece swing band. Go for it. But that's going to be a bigger chunk of your budget. So again, that's something you need to think about at the start and go, okay, these are our top priorities. The flip to that is you'll have things that aren't as important to you. So perhaps you're not somebody that likes cake. Maybe you just think to yourself, I'm not going to have a wedding cake because people expect that I should. I'm going to just put that money to something else that I really want to. And then again, maybe you absolutely love cake and one cake isn't enough, do it. Get as many cakes as you want. So that's what I'm saying when I talk about establishing your priorities as a couple. That also feeds into things such as wedding trends. So I'm quite sure you've all looked at different blogs, Pinterest, looked at different magazines around what are the wedding trends or the wedding themes that you'll see for 2023. They might not necessarily be right for you. So I'm sure we've all seen the lovely champagne towers. That seems to be visual. I've seen a few nods there. Lovely champagne towers. Pour your champagne. It comes cascaded down all the glasses. Very sexy looking. Maybe you're teetotal. So you don't drink champagne, so why would you have a champagne tower at your wedding? So these are the things to make sure that you don't get caught into doing things at your wedding because it's the trendy thing to do or it's what everybody else is doing. Think about, is it actually relevant to you and your relationship? This is a day to celebrate the start of your married life together, so it should absolutely reflect you as a couple. So think about that when you're looking at your priorities, about how you want to spend your money and how you want to invest in those things that you're really passionate about. You don't have to have everything that's expected in a wedding, and as I've said in my video, don't should all over your day. Just because you should do that, because that's what's expected, doesn't mean to say that that's something you absolutely should be doing at your wedding. So, moving on to what time of year you want to consider getting married. Excuse me for a moment. Time of year, let's be honest, we live in Scotland, so there's no guarantees for good weather in the summer, but you do stand a slightly better chance of having a sunnier wedding if you're getting married in spring or summer months. If you are planning on having a spring or summer wedding, chances are that you're probably considering having a ceremony outside, for example. That might not necessarily be the case, but generally speaking, a lot of couples do pick that time of year because they want to have an outdoor ceremony, like the lovely Virginia and Alex here. That's fantastic and that's great. You might find an absolutely gorgeous setting, an estate that has wonderful gardens that you love, and that's exactly where you want to get married. The flip side is, the reality is that as good a wedding planner as I am or any other supplier, we can't control the weather and neither can you. So when you are thinking about where you want to book and which time of year you're looking at planning, if you are thinking about having an outdoor ceremony, your plan B option, indoors, has to be something that you love just as much. Because if it gets to the morning of your wedding and it's torrential rain and the outdoor option isn't going to work for you, do you really want to be getting married in a space indoors that you're just not that thrilled about? Probably not. And also, that's going to be in your photos. That's going to be in there, in the background, in all your wedding photos, your wedding video. So it is important that when you are looking at your venues and you're considering what time of year you want to get married, for summer, spring, outdoor ceremonies, that's great, but there is no guarantees. So make sure that your plan B option, that you love it just as much and that you will be happy as much as possible to get married in that space as well. Other things to consider as well are, if you're thinking about spring and summer, I'm sure we can all remember the couple of Scotch, the 2 days of summer that we had last year were completely unbearable, and everyone was like, why don't we have aircon in Scotland? There is a reality of thinking about, okay, well, it might be absolutely roasting. Virginia and Alex got married in July and they decided, oh, do you know what, we're going to hire 40 umbrellas just in case it rains. Clearly, if you can see from that photo, it was an absolutely gorgeous day. They were able to utilise those umbrellas as parasols from the sun so that their guests were able to stand outside and actually enjoy the sunshine and be in the shade. So things will work out if you plan accordingly. The flip side is you might want to be thinking about getting married in autumn and winter, like the lovely Jolly Chris here. It is worth pointing out that location is the same for both weddings. One was in July last year, one was in October last year. So the weather can be quite changeable as when you're in Scotland, and if you are thinking about maybe having an autumn and a winter celebration, you probably are going to be looking at indoors. Not necessarily. You might decide, actually, you know what, I'm going to get married outside and embrace the elements, whatever they bring. Things to consider though, particularly if you're looking at autumn and winter, more so probably with the winter wedding, is if the venue that you are booking and you're maybe having your wedding in November, you're probably not thinking about what the Christmas decorations of the venue are going to look like, but that is something to really consider. Ultimately, a lot of venues will have their Christmas decorations up from about mid-November, some even as early as the beginning of November. So it's important that you have those conversations with the venue so that you understand what the decor is going to be like in the venue that time of year. Do you like it? Does the colour scheme complement the colour scheme that you perhaps have in mind for your wedding? You don't want to get there the day before your wedding, rock up, and there's bright red and silver Christmas trees, and it's completely not what you were expecting. So these are things that you've probably just got engaged. I want to have a winter wedding. A winter wedding and a Christmas wedding are two very different things. But for a lot of venues, they will have their Christmas decorations up from November. So things to consider when you're looking at winter venues is to make sure that you understand and know what the space is going to look like at the time of year that you're going to get married. So again, worth having those conversations with the venue up front so that you can see what it's going to look like. They'll probably be able to share with you example images so that you can see what it's going to look like. And again, it is worth asking, are they planning on maybe making any changes so that you know in advance that you're not surprised when you get closer to your wedding that they decide, actually, do you know what? I booked it because I love the gold theme that they had for the Christmas decorations, and then suddenly they change it and it's all turquoises and blues, and that's not at all in keeping with what you had in mind. So think about that as well when you're having these conversations with your venues. Deciding on your I-Do crew, your wedding party, your squad, your gang, your best peeps that support you day in, day out. I would definitely take time to consider who you want to have with you and support you as part of your wedding day. There's a lot of traditional notions about bridesmaids, groomsmen, and all of those sorts of things, and that might not necessarily be right for you in your relationship. It could be that your best friend is, you want to have a best maid at your wedding, or the man of honour, whatever that might be, or however that looks for you. Think about what's important to you as opposed to what's actually relevant with regards to tradition. You might decide, actually, do you know what, I've got too many people to pick and choose from, so I'm just not going to go down this route. I'm going to just have no wedding party at all. That's absolutely fine. Do what's right for you. As I say, it's your day. It's important that the decisions that you make aren't compromised to the point that you're doing it for everybody else. If you are choosing people to have as part of your wedding party, make sure you think about the relationship dynamic. Do they know each other? Is there any relationships perhaps you might need a little bit closer management? Other things to consider is, if you're the one getting married, are you the planner of your group? If you're the planner of your group, chances are that your friends rely on you to be the organizer of most things. And when it comes to your wedding, you don't want to be standing there with a clipboard on your wedding day, making sure that your friends and family all know what they need to be doing when. So that is something to really consider in terms of the group of people that you have around you are going to be able to support you, not just in the run up to the wedding, but actually on the wedding day itself. The wedding day itself can be quite stressful, it can be overwhelming, particularly if you're having a larger wedding. So it's important that your friends and family who are there as part of your wedding party completely get that and are happy to support you and do the running around in the background that needs doing, catching up with suppliers about quick changes of plans that are happening on the day. Maybe that's not something you want your wedding party to do. Maybe you just think to yourself, do you know what, I want my friends and family to just rock up and enjoy themselves. So that's why it's worth considering hiring a wedding coordinator or checking in with your venue to see what level of service the venue coordinator will offer on the day as well. Relationships can change over time as well. So you might get engaged, your friendship might change by the time you get married. So don't just immediately go out and be like, oh, I'm going to just ask everybody that I know and love to be part of my wedding party. Things to consider are you could involve people in different ways to your wedding. You could have them give a reading during the ceremony. You could have them act as a witness for the ceremony. You could have them giving a speech. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate your friends and family into your wedding without having to have them as part of your immediate wedding party. Other things to consider as part of your wedding party as well are budget. It does come into it. The bigger the wedding party, there's a bigger expectation that they'll probably have to accommodate things like perhaps additional bouquets, additional buttonholes. You don't have to do these things, and I want to really stress that, but you might feel that you want to do that. For those who are perhaps having bridesmaids, here in the UK, we don't have such a clear etiquette around how that works in terms of who pays for what. Culturally, that might be slightly different. For example, in America, when you're getting married and you get asked to be a bridesmaid, the expectation is the bridesmaid pays for everything. The outfit, everything, they cover it all. That's not necessarily the case here in the UK. So again, it's about being really honest with your wedding party up front and saying, right, okay, I'm going to be buying all your outfits because I have a very specific look that I want. Or it may well be you're like, you know what, I just have a particular colour in mind. I'm happy for you to buy a dress that you're going to be able to wear again in the future. Go nuts. Personally, I had my sisters as my bridesmaids, and I was like, well, you would probably be paying to get your hair and makeup done anyway. And they were like, yeah, that's fair comment. So my sisters paid for their own hair and makeup on their fly by the day. It's important to have those conversations up front. So I know I keep stressing about the budget and the financial implications, but that is something to really think about depending on the size of the wedding party that you have as well. And my last bonus tip of the day, enjoy being engaged. You're not really engaged for that long in comparison to the rest of your relationship. You've probably been together for a number of years, popped the question, and you're going to be married for the rest of your lives. Your engagement period is a short period of time where you get to call each other your fiancé. Enjoy it. Make sure that you revel in being engaged. Make sure that you take the time to pause and reflect on what's important for you in your relationship and really enjoy the wedding planning side of things. Take a step back when it gets a bit much, ask for help when you need it, and be honest with your family and friends about how you want your day to look. So yeah, definitely enjoy being engaged. I'm now going to open up the floor to any questions. So thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate that some people might not be comfortable asking questions in a bit of an open forum. So if you do want to ask any questions, I will be hanging around here for a short period afterwards. So please feel free to come over and speak to me if you want to do so afterwards. But for now, I'll open up the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Just wondering how much notice people need to give you if they're looking to take you on as a wedding planner in whichever capacity that is?
The sooner the better, I'd always say to couples. Generally speaking, if you're looking for full planning, I would definitely advise much sooner than later. That being said, I have had couples who've booked me with 6 months' notice because they booked their venue a year ago and then haven't done anything else since. That does happen. And if you are perhaps looking to plan your wedding yourself, and you're maybe thinking, oh, I'd like to get somebody to help me in the final month, generally speaking, I would probably look to do that about 9 months in advance because you'll have a better idea of how much is involved in your wedding and how much support that you need. So as early as possible for full planning, maybe up to 9 months before for the final few weeks or month of coordination. Thank you.
What would you say the most common mistake is that couples make when they're planning their wedding?
Oh, that is a good question. Thank you. In personal experience, the most common mistake that I find a lot of couples make is making too many compromises for everybody else. That's basically it. Your wedding brings out a lot of well-meaning family and friends giving advice, and that's great. Your friends and family obviously love you and they want you to have a day that you're going to enjoy, but they'll also perhaps have expectations. So just making sure that when you're going through the wedding planning that you don't end up falling into the trap of suddenly having a day that isn't actually reflective of you as a couple, that you're starting to make a lot of decisions and booking a lot of things because other people are asking you to do it. The last thing I want my couples to do is arrive on their wedding day and look around and be like, this isn't really what we wanted, we're doing this for such and such family relatives. So yeah, the biggest mistake I see couples making is having too many compromises to please others. Your family and friends love you, so they should absolutely want you and respect the choices that you make for your wedding day. It's one day where you get to celebrate your relationship, so do it the way that you want. Thank you.